can be a fun time. That's when people enjoy hay rides, pumpkin and apple picking, and looking at the fall foliage in the mountains. But some like it because of the spooky atmosphere. This was Coletta's favorite part about fall. It seemed like the spookiest things always crept up this time of year, and she loved every minute of it. One evening, she rolled into the shed rather annoyed. It's nearly Halloween, and nobody's told me a spooky story yet. Do any of you have one? She said, eyeing Jihad and Larry, who both looked at each other. Sorry, Coletta, answered Jihad. I don't know any. Well, Larry thought, attempting to be helpful, I could tell you about that time I thought that old boiler was a ghost engine. Larry, we've heard that before, she grumbled. I want to hear something different. I think I've got one, said a voice. The three engines looked over at Ian. An older conductor told me about one at the end of my freight run. Finally, someone with a spooky story. Go ahead, Ian, tell us. Okay, Ian obliged. And the big engine did. Long ago, there was this 040 locomotive. He was the oldest out of most of the engines on his railroad, and despite that, was a really hard worker. One day, he was resting in a siding just off the main line, waiting for his next assignment. But little did he know, he would never get that assignment. An axle had snapped on a passing coal train. The derailed car slammed into him, knocking him off the rails. Thankfully, his crew wasn't hurt. But the engine was not so lucky. His whole left side was dented and damaged, and his frame was cracked. Considering his age, the railroad decided to salvage what parts they could and scrap the rest of them. A year later, a Challenger locomotive was waiting at a red signal. While waiting, the engine's crew was talking amongst themselves when they heard a splintering crash from behind them. They jumped to their feet quickly and hopped down from the cab and began making their way toward the back of the train. They feared that the conductor was killed. Much to their relief, halfway along the train, they found the conductor. He was making his way toward the engine when the crash occurred. All three men then walked back to the rear of the train to check on the engine's crew that had slammed into them. When they reached the last few cars, they found that them and the caboose had been smashed to bits and coal was lying everywhere. But when they peered around the wreckage, they found no other locomotive. All three men were shocked and puzzled. Could they have been the victim of a hit and run? But no, that would not be possible. Not with the way the crash looks. The three men ran through the darkness to the signal tower so they could call for help. The tower operator told the three men he did hear an engine pass by, but didn't expect for it to run the red signal. A nearby steam engine that overheard the conversation told them that from around the bend, he saw an engine, and it didn't look like any old engine. He could literally see right through it. It whistled past him at an alarming rate and went out of sight. When they asked what type of engine it was, the engine responded, it was a 440. Everyone's faces went pale. They knew what it was. The legend says on nights when the ghost is bored, he'll roam around random railroads looking for coal trains to derail as revenge for his death. And that, finished Ian, is the story. Jihad and Larry shivered nervously, but Coletta was completely unfazed. That's the story? She asked. Yes, said Ian. You have a problem? Yes, I have a problem, snapped Coletta. That story wasn't good at all. Ian just ignored Coletta. He felt more angry than hurt. A few evenings later, Paul arrived with news of a job for Jihad and Larry. I need you two to take a long coal train out to the power plant. They need more coal. Can't it wait till morning? Shivered Larry. No, said Paul, and walked away. I can't believe you two are scared of that silly ghost, huffed Coletta. That story wasn't even scary. Well, said Jihad, Larry and I aren't taking any chances. Jihad's right, agreed Larry. Let's go and drop this coal off before that ghost comes after us. A long while after Jihad and Larry had left, Paul came back to the roundhouse. Even with Larry and Jihad together, they couldn't take all the coal at once. I need you to go to pick up the last of it. Keta hated the idea of being sent out so late on a job, but decided it was best not to argue. By the time Keta reached Denville, it had gotten darker and the fog had rolled in. It's only fog, nothing to be scared of, she said to herself. Meanwhile, Larry and Jihad were carefully making their way through the fog with their long train of coal. They were traveling slower than normal because the railroad rules state that engines must travel at a reduced speed in foggy conditions. Through the thick fog, they saw a red signal and had to stop. The tower operator explained to them and their crews that a passenger train had broken down ahead of them, and they would have to stay there for a while. We're like sitting ducks out here, Jihad whispered to Larry. I know, Larry replied. If we stay here any longer, that ghost will come get us. Behind them, Keta was making her way through the fog too. The speed restriction was annoying Keta. She wanted to get back to her nice shed, and it seemed like that wasn't going to happen at this rate. And also, the fog was making her a little uneasy. Keta was then halted at a red signal. Keta looked around. Every shape and shadow looked scary. She then tried to regain her composure. There's nothing scary out here. They're just silly stories. But she was having a hard time convincing herself otherwise. Keta then heard the sound of a steam engine puffing up fast behind her. Who are you? She shouted. Identify yourself. But nobody did. The puffing just got louder and louder as it grew closer. Then Keta heard a loud, piercing whistle. It's the ghost! It's the ghost from Ian's story! She shouted, and before her crew could stop her, Keta shot off like a rocket through the red signal and down the main line. Help! Help! He's gonna get me! Shouted Keta. Her driver tried to put on the brakes, but Keta would not respond to her driver's controls. Keta was also going dangerously fast for the conditions. Through the fog, she saw the red caboose of Jihad and Larry's train directly ahead of her. Stop, stop, stop! She shouted, we're gonna crash! But the hopper cars, who were frightened too, surged into her. No, don't stop! Go on, go on! The ghost is gonna get us! The ghost is gonna get us! Keta screeched along the rails with her brakes hard on. She shut her eyes tight, preparing for the crash. Jihad and Larry were growing more impatient and frightened by the minute. Then they heard the loud crash from behind. It's him! He's found us! Shouted Larry. Let's get out of here! Jihad called. Whoa, 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 said their drivers, quickly reaching for the brake. Don't you two go taking off through the fog. Let's uncouple and see what's happened. Do we have to? Groaned Larry. Yes, said the driver sternly. The two engines were uncoupled and puffed down an adjacent track to see what had happened. When they arrived, they were shocked to see. Keta? Jihad said in surprise. You ran into us? Yes, I did, said Keta quickly. Sorry, but the ghost, he was behind me. Then in the distance, they heard a whistle. Larry listened. That's not the ghost engine. It's Lita. And sure enough, it was. Wow, what happened here? She asked. That was you behind me the whole time? Asked Keta. Yes, it was, Lita replied. I wonder why you took off. I just saw your rear end markers go out of sight suddenly. Coletta here thought you were the ghost engine, explained Larry. Well, I'm certainly not that, Lita chuckled. Why are you out here so late running light engine? Jihad asked. I was called to rescue that stranded passenger train, she answered, but it looks like I can't get to it now. Eventually, a spare engine from Otisville came to rescue the stricken passengers. At the crack of dawn, Larry and Jihad had brought the wreck crews to help rescue Coletta and to clean up the mess. Miss Caldwell was also on the scene. She spoke very sternly to Coletta and told her that she would work in the yards until she learns how to obey red signals. So Coletta, Larry chuckled. What's that about Ian's story not being good or not being scary? Okay, Coletta admitted. It was a little scary. A little scary, Jihad yelped in surprise. Look at the mess it made you cause. But, stuttered Coletta. Larry and Jihad had to laugh.
What's that moving in the corner? What's that shadow on the wall?
Don't be afraid, don't be scared, it really is nothing at all.
But I saw something in the corner. I saw that shadow on the wall.
It's just your imagination.
Look, it's just the wise old owl.
Choo-choo, don't be afraid of the dark. It's easily explained, you see why things go bump in the night. Boo, 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 choo-choo, don't wander from your track. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid of the dark. The little engine wondered, he thought and thought all night. Really nothing's changed, it's just the same, just daylight turned to night.
But something moved in the corner. A shadow crossed the wall.
He closed his eyes, counted 10,
And remembered the wise old owl.
boo, boo, choo-choo, don't be afraid of the dark. When the lights go out and you have your doubts, why things go bump in the night. Boo, 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 choo-choo, don't wander from your mark. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid of the dark. So don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid of the dark. Boo, boo, choo-choo, don't be afraid of the dark. It's easily explained, you see why things go bump in the night. Boo, 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 choo-choo, don't wander from your track. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid of the dark.
What's that moving in the corner? What's that shadow on the wall?
Don't be afraid, don't be scared, it really is nothing at all.
But I saw something in the corner. A shadow crossed the wall.
It's just your imagination.
Look, it's just the wise old owl.